So who do you know that are networking experts? And, for a lot of people, networking is a difficult thing. They make it much harder than it needs to be because they think about it as, oh my God, I've got to build this opportunity and get them to hire me. No. Who do you know that does a good job of building relationships? Who do you know that is a good networker, right? What would you define as a good networker? And I'd love to get some thoughts from you all on this. How would you define a good networker? Or maybe how do you build friendships and relationships? What are the activities involved in that? Krishna, welcome. We're just getting started, and I've said to everybody, please feel free to just chime in. When I ask a question like that, you can unmute and say hello and answer, or you can put your response in the chat, whatever works easiest for you.
Oh, hi, good evening. I'd say that I've been networking on LinkedIn. That's kind of what I've been doing the most with past colleagues, acquaintances.
Good. And that's one really simple, easy, fast place for us to network in these times. We have the technology that allows us to use things like LinkedIn as a way of networking. But again, remember what I was saying just earlier. Maybe you weren't there for it, Krishna, that's okay. Networking goes beyond just connecting with that past coworker and saying, hi, let's have a connection on LinkedIn. We have to build a relationship. We can use LinkedIn to build that relationship, but we still have to have relationship. Anybody else have any thoughts? Michelle, Daryl, Gina, how would you answer any of these questions? See, for
Paul,
me, go ahead.
Paul, I spend a lot of time, in my business is primarily referral. So I'm always out there talking with folks, but my primary target audience is my own network of friends and family. Just reminding them what I do for a living, not in a hard sell kind of way, but just kind of sharing. There may be a tip or something that's in the back of my mind that I want to share. And that gives them a reminder that, of what I do for a living. Exactly.
And, one of the things that I've noticed about someone who is a good networker, the people who I see that are remembered in different parties and meetings are the people who are building connections with others, right? So, Milry may know something about one of you that he recognizes would be important for me to know. And so he's going to introduce me to you and give me that information, or vice versa, right? But it's that person who's making the connections that ends up being the one who's the most popular and the most remembered from most gatherings of people. So I like to look at that. A lot of people would say the best networker is the most outgoing person. That's not necessarily true. I think the best networker is the one who's doing the best job of creating relationships, right? And so just think about, how do you build relationships with your neighbors, with your friends, with coworkers when you start a new job, with whomever, wherever you go? How do you build relationships? Another story that I'll probably share again later. One of my dearest friends today, now I'm 61. I met him 16, 17 years ago when he was 16 years old and the cashier at my local food store. And, the worst thing in the world to me is standing online at the food store. It's just such a waste of time and so boring. But I would usually, when I got to the cashier, I'd say hello. I'd use their name if they had a name tag on and start to engage them in conversation. And especially, most of today's teenagers, they just don't want to know from nothing and ignore you. So this young man, I said, hello, Joe, it's nice to meet you. How's your day going today? Oh man, it's been long and boring. Really, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see what you and I can do to make it more fun. And so we engaged in conversation as he's ringing all of my stuff up. And, it's one of the first people that actually had a conversation with me at that food store. So next week when I went shopping, I went back to his line because I had fun talking to him. Right? And so we had a second conversation. And then he asked me what I do and how I do it. And we got into, where's he at in his high school journey and what schools was he going to go to for college and all this and over the course of 5 or 6 weeks, me always going to his line because here's a kid that's actually interesting. We built a relationship. Next thing you know, he said, hey, Paul, I could really use some help with my application to Northeastern University. Would you be willing to help me write my essay and give me some critique of the information I'm providing? I was happy to do it. We did that. He got into Northeastern. Then he came back to me, and of course, we're starting to really build friendship, and there's 30 years between us, He then said, I'm going to go into the Peace Corps. Would you help me with that? So we worked on his Peace Corps application. He had a great experience there. And then I worked with him to get his first job at JP Morgan Chase Bank. Since then, he and his family, my family, we're close friends. We do all kinds of things together because we started a conversation in the line at the grocery store. Where would you find opportunities to network, and how would you define that person who's a good networker?